Welcome back to another episode of the Successful Driver Podcast presented by Aero Truck Sales. And we are so excited today to be talking to a special guest with a lot of experience in the industry. Not trying to age you, Bruce.
Don't worry, I'm there.
But a very unique voice today and a fellow podcaster, Bruce Outridge, the host of the Lead Pedal podcast, an author, a speaker, a man of many talents. We are learning here as we go along. Bruce, thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with us here on the Successful Driver podcast.
Thanks for having me on, Ken. I'm always excited. I'm not excited to be on anybody's show, and I'm always excited when someone asks. And it's great. I just love to talk trucking. We can talk that all day, so we're good.
Well, and you're not the guy that's having to lead this thing here today. I just get to ask you questions. So it's, you're getting to be in the other chair today too a little bit.
I'm going to warn you because I was on a friend's podcast the other night, and it's very hard when everybody's used to being the host. So if you want to tell me to shut up, I'm totally cool with that. Shut up, let me get the questions in. Because the other night they had two people and one of them didn't get to talk for them. We were just going subject to subject to subject. So that happens when everybody's used to being in a comfortable host position. So let me know hear your show.
Hey, no, it's fine by me because then I can just sit back and get out of the way. I can just sit here and sip on my drink and there's nothing in here suspicious. I'm just, I can just kind of sit back and relax a little bit here. But genuinely, man, I'm very excited to be speaking with you. And we've talked to a lot of different people in the industry, but I know you have experience as a driver. I really want to start by this. I just want, the full picture of your experience in the trucking industry. Again, not trying to age you, but I know you have a long history here in the trucking industry. How'd you get started? What's your story?
I'm 57 for all those people who right now they're trying to do the math based on what you said and go, okay, so when's he start? So just so everybody can just stop adding and listen, this is what I want you to do. So yeah, I'm, it's funny because and this is why I work with a lot of youth and stuff up here because I'm the high school dropout. I got into trucking at the age of 17. And I don't know if you know that I'm a cartoonist as well. I wanted to draw. So I have 3 Ds, not all good. I like to draw, I like to drive, and I like to drink. And the drinking doesn't usually go all the way in there, but it's kind of later in life. But I started drawing when I was 10 and nobody told you here you can go to art school. Nobody said that. My parents were accountants. So they said, go get a real job. And a real job for me was humping furniture. So I started in the moving industry, a bed bugger as they're called. And we would just unload the trucks and load the trucks and help people move. I was with Atlas Van Lines at the time. And I noticed that the driver of the straight truck was getting paid a little more than me and carrying a little less. And he was also the boss. And I said, okay, maybe I should become the driver. So I got my straight truck license for a couple of years. And then went right into owning a truck right at this great age of 21 in 1981. So, and then did that for about 5 to 7 years. I was in the moving industry, and then I switched to the freight side of the industry, and worked for good companies, both private and for hire. Basically running all across North America. Got really comfortable in the hazmat. So most of my career has been hauling hazardous chemicals. And I stopped driving professionally 14 years ago after being the fleet supervisor for a few years. Decided I was going to go out on my own, not sure what I was going to do. I was actually going to start an art business. So that's always really good when you tell people, yeah, I'm going to get rid of a 6-figure income to go start an art business. They're all really cheering for you, but it works out. And, I had no idea with podcasts. I didn't know I would be doing this. And here we are 14 years later, and we're into everything to do with media and still loving the industry. I'm like a kid in a candy store. I still love to see a chromed out Peterbilt or something. And it's just gets me going for sure.
So you owned your first truck in 1981?
Yes, it's a cab over, an old Ford cab over. If you've ever seen that movie Blue Mule, that's the Ford cab over I had. The person that taught me to drive was a friend of mine who we worked together at the same moving company. His dad was a trucker. And he said, why don't we thought, okay, 2 of us that are experienced drivers. And when I say experienced drivers, I had a couple years of moving experience. I certainly wasn't, tractor trailer experience at that time, but I had a couple years. He was very experienced. He'd been doing it for about 5 years. We said, why don't we go into partnership and buy a truck? And we got on with Atlas. So we bought an old truck for $10,000. His dad lent us some money, and we went to, we started running to Florida and stuff like that. Well, what we didn't figure out is that 2 young guys, and I'm talking like I'm 21 and he's like 23, in Fort Lauderdale in the middle of January from Canada, is not the most efficient or cost-effective way to build a business. We spent more drinking and partying and doing all those things. And after a couple, we lasted about a year and a half, I think, and a year and a half to 2 years, and we weren't really making any money. We didn't do it correctly the way we should have, and so I split off that. He sold out my part and paid me whatever little bit I was owed there. And he went on his own. I think he got out of the truck shortly after that. He met a nurse and moved to Arizona or something like that. I haven't seen him in all this time, but I would love to. But he's the one who taught me to drive. His name is Andre. And just he taught me the old school way. This is before schools. He taught me the old school way of doing things. And I still love the industry. But I had a really successful career. A lot of it's just about hard work and trying to be as professional as you can.
So were you an owner operator for the duration of your career behind a wheel, or what did that look like?
No, I was just a driver. I got out of that owner operator space. Like I said, I went to the freight side. And when you go to the freight side, it's almost like starting a new career again. I didn't know any of the companies. I was working local, just taking trailers, delivering around Toronto. And I kept working for a good company. So I never felt that urge to become an owner operator. I've always driven big trucks, and I've always worked for family-owned style companies, so they always treated you really good. I did try to get into it again. My father-in-law at the time had bought a second truck, and I was supposed to operate that. And I said, if I like it, I was going to buy it. Well, unfortunately, it was on with a company that didn't see eye to eye. I think I got home a month after I went out. And for Canadian drivers, that's a long time. I know in the US, they kind of do that regularly. But for me, I had just had a kid at the time. To be gone a month and not home was not working. That happened for about 6 months. And I said, this is not going to work out. So I went back to my old carrier. And from there, I got into private companies and didn't really feel that need to go out on my own again. But I know I would do it differently this time for sure. I've been self-employed for 14 years, so I have a better grasp on it now.
So it sounds like there was some moments of debate, at least in your life, about potentially getting back into owner operatorship at different times in your career. Is that a fair statement? Or
yeah, I think, for some people, it's a burning urge to get into.
Yeah.
I've always made really good money. So if you're at the private carriers pay a lot better than some of the for hire carriers. So when you're at a for hire carrier, I can see the urge being more to get into becoming an owner operator. But I worked for a global company. So my actual goal was not to become an owner operator, but to become more in management and get out of the seat. Sure. That was my goal. I thought, I don't know why. I said, by the time I'm 45, I don't want to be driving anymore. I made that goal when I was 20. Have no idea why. 25 years just seemed like long enough. Now here I am. I've still got my license. I've been out of it, and I'm going, how do I get back into it now? Because I really missed the driving part of it. I really love the driving, and the companies I work for gave me nice trucks, gave me nice runs. I made good money for what I was doing. And so I was happy. I was happy doing that. I actually got to a point where, what am I going to do next? And I didn't really think owner operator kind of came into it, but I was kind of more looking towards getting out of the truck into management down the road.
Bruce, you said you miss it. I would love nothing more than to see your entire podcast setup just stationed in an actual truck.
Yeah. Well, I want a mobile studio. So here's my goal now, because I go to the shows, right? I just want some nice, stretched out Peterbilt with a camper trailer that could be a mobile studio. That's kind of where I'd like to go now. But I live in a condo. There is nowhere to park a truck. I would have to hire maintenance. I have nothing. So to me, it's kind of a big expense to get back into it if I want to that way. So I've got lots of friends with trucks. I just drive them.
There you go. So, I mean, throughout your podcast, and you've been going for 6 years now, you've gotten to talk to a lot of different people within the industry, and you've got a unique perspective. And that's what I'm so excited to talk to you about. You've absorbed a lot of information, but also you've lived it.
Yes.
And so we like to ask this question to everybody that kind of comes through. It's, what makes a successful driver?
Probably what most people, well, the old school guys understand this already, but a lot of new drivers do not understand this. They think it's about how well you drive. And really where you make money in this industry is not on driving the truck. Is the starting point. Like you have to be able to back up and you should know how to, do a pre-trip inspection, all of those kind of things. But where you really make money in trucking is being on time, being professional, good customer service, working with your company, being nice to dispatch. I know that could be hard to do sometimes, but those are the things that bring you the opportunity. So for example, when I started with one company, I was there only a year, and NASCAR came calling and they were saying, the company I was with had fairly fancy trucks, and they said, we would like to pick 3 drivers to go on the NASCAR tour, which is kind of a regular tour now. Now, at the time, I didn't know anything about the NASCAR tour other than I liked race cars. And I was only a year in. So it's not like I had high seniority. They'd only known me for a year. But in that year, I'd been on time all the time. I had been one of these guys who polish their trucks and always keep their trucks looking good, whether it was mine or a company truck. And so they chose me. They said, would you like to go do this? Now, of course, the caveat was I had to be away 2 months at a time because you go on the whole circuit and it was a little different. We didn't get the bid, so I didn't go on the project. But the point was I was offered that because of the driver. There was many drivers in that fleet with a lot more seniority. And I've always found that through my career. I've always had like dedicated freight or, dispatches that are willing to work with you. I used to run New Jersey and New York 3 times a week. People hate that area, but you make good money there if you are the kind of person who's on time and willing to kind of hustle and get things done. And the company rewards you by saying, you know what, we know you've been doing that area for a couple of weeks. Why don't you take a trip to Texas, or why don't you take a trip to Florida? And that's how you kind of get your break. So I've always had companies that worked with me, and that's how I've always made fairly good money.
I think that extends beyond whether or not you're becoming an owner operator or a company driver. It's just that it's how you're navigating the opportunities and the situations you're in. And there's more, you're right. There's more to this than just being a good truck driver. And, looking at this from a pure business perspective, I think that resonates so much. And it's not just, it's really not just the trucking industry. It's how you treat people, how you handle people, your responsiveness to need, and I mean, all those things tie in together so well. It's, it's just like any other business in a lot of different ways, and not entirely, definitely not. But
you talk to any driver who's doing very well at the company they're at, and you will find there's not a big urge for them to go and become owner operators. And it's not that they don't think that they can make it or what have you, but I've always had that mentality that whether I pay for the truck or not, I own the truck. Like, it was my vehicle. And when you take care of it like that, and the company realizes you must take care of that, like I never drove old trucks at the beginning. I did, but for a while, at the end, they were like, "Here, let's go to the dealership and pick. I'm going to show you the leather seats and all that." Like, that's where it was at the end, because I took care of that old truck they gave me in the beginning. And the drivers that do that, you will find the companies kind of leave them alone. A company finds a guy who's going to take care of their equipment like it's their own vehicle, is going to be on time, is willing to do the work and get the job done. They're not going to bug you so that you leave. They want to keep you. They do not want you going anywhere. So They kind of leave you independent. My company would give me, I had a dedicated trailer. So I had my own trailer. I had my own truck. Everything matched. It looked good. They kind of let me do what I did, as long as I did it within the realms of doing what they needed to get done. I never had a problem with any of them. And then a lot of those customers, or my companies, I have gone back and done training for since I've stopped driving. So those relationships, they last a lifetime. And, the good drivers who have figured that out are the ones that are never looking for work. People have always, they're probably turning work away because they're getting knocked on their door all the time.
No, that's great stuff, man. I always like to ask this question too, and you've got a unique. I really want to hear your perspective of your role in the truck driver story. So, how are you helping truck drivers find success these days?
I think the way that the way we've positioned our podcast, and actually all of my shows, is to inspire someone to be the best they can through business and careers. So, I'm talking trucking on this one. I have another podcast, which is all for artists. I have a television show, which is for youth in the community. They all kind of do the same thing. And I use myself as the example that, if you go by the statistics, Bruce, you're a high school dropout. Why are you not in jail? Why are you not in the ditch? Why are you not, homeless somewhere? Those kind of things. is what people assume because you did not finish education. Mm-hmm. And the one thing that I'm really passionate about is showing people education comes from everywhere. I was failing geography until I became a truck driver. And trust me, you learn that quick. Okay. One trip to Chicago will teach you geography like you've never had it before. And so once you start doing that, that's how I like to learn now. And all I want to show people is, you know what, you want to be a truck driver. It's an awesome career. I'm still in it 40 years later. But be passionate about it. Like, this is not the career where you get in and you just say, I'm just going to do this today and I don't feel like working very well. Those are the drivers you always see looking for work. They're the ones that are always trying to figure out, is it greener over here at this company than at my company? Whereas if you just get in with a decent company and you're a good driver, they will help you grow the way you want to be. And there's no reason you can't make good money. I know lots of drivers here. They're making almost six figures even as a driver, never mind the owner-operator parts who are making more. I know people that they take time off whenever they want. That's the whole idea, but they didn't start that way. They worked hard early on and then they branched out into that.
One of the things you just kind of hit on a little bit, and one of the themes that I just heard there is the idea of consistency. Yeah. And that's not something that has been expressed. I'm not saying that's not a theme that we've heard here, but the way you kind of express that, the level of consistency of a driver, regardless of, whether you're out on your own or whether you are a company driver, that does seem like something that resonates pretty strongly with you based on your experiences.
Yeah. And my podcast, you don't get over 600 episodes by doing this once in a while when you feel like.
Right.
Like, we've got a daily show and, I don't know about when you started your podcast, but when I started mine, I was listening to the guru. I didn't know anything about pie. I listened to the gurus and they go, oh yeah, you got to have a show a day and all that. I'm doing a show a day and not knowing why. That's what I was told to do. And we almost shut it down at 100 episodes because they weren't I wasn't getting all the feedback that they say we're supposed to be getting. And then all of a sudden we started getting it, but I've been consistent. People who know me know I'm very consistent. I'm not late. If I say I'm going to put a show out, as soon as I know one person is listening, then that show is going to go out on Wednesday. If I said that's when it's going to go out. And, if you have that kind of mentality, it will grow over time. People need to see that you're real. Especially in today's world.
Yeah.
So many people get into this space. We make it look like fun. Ken, you and I, we've been doing this a while. We make this look like fun, right? So people go, I can do that. And then they realize how much work behind the scenes and arranging guests and all those things that we have to do to have a successful podcast is a lot of work. And then they go, oh, there's a reason podcasts don't make it past 20 episodes a lot of the time, because they realize how much work it is and it's not all fun. So, to do this for as long as we've been doing it is the same consistency. I still do all of my own editing and everything, even at this point, right? We're still doing all the stuff ourselves.
When you've been rewarded with a lot of unique conversations that you've been able to cultivate with a lot of different people. I've been looking at your guys' list of all the people and the diversity of voices that you're getting. And I think that's so cool. And that's something that we're also striving for here is, there is so many different facets of this industry. There are so many voices and there are so many aspects and people with diverse backgrounds, and so many dynamics. It's so cool to be able to try to hear from so many different people because, there's a lot of people that make up this industry in a lot of different ways, and getting that diversity of voice is such a critical thing, we think, for what we're doing here. And very obviously, Bruce, it seems like something that you guys are pushing for too over at Lead Pedal.
For sure. And the thing about this is a lot of people get into this and go, I'm going to get a guest with the biggest audience. They think that's how you grow. And that's not how we do it. I don't choose my guests based on who their audience is. I choose my guests based on, will they add something to my audience? And I like to see, there's a reason that a lot of times our guests are Hall of Fame drivers, or I promote a lot of women in the industry. Ellen Voy, I know you had on your show. Mm-hmm. Ellen's been on our show. She's great. I see her at a lot of our trucking events up here in Canada. And, it's great what she's doing. We want to promote women in the industry. We want people to come into this industry. And again, I'm just showing people, don't listen to me. I'm behind a mic. Here's somebody who is doing it. Here's a woman that came into the industry, or here's another truck driver. I don't know if I just had Jeffrey Ford. He's been on my, Jeffrey's an actor. So, people think we're stupid truck drivers, but here's Jeffrey, who's actually an award-winning actor. He plays a lot of these little parts. And he does it for fun. He does it just to break up the monotony of 6 weeks out on the road. He comes home and he does a part in a movie for 2 weeks and he goes back on the road or whatever it is. People think you got to be smart to do that. Like, he does that for fun, but there's a lot of people who are writing books. I had a guy who's writing novels. This is how he used to be a football player. And then he left that industry and got into trucking, and now he's got a novelist, and he uses the trucking to. I said, how many dispatchers have been killed off in your novels? He says, oh, there's plenty. He says, there's plenty. We changed the name, but there's plenty that have been, So trucking is such a diverse place, like you were saying, and there's people think we just, they see one guy dressed badly or one girl dressed badly, or somebody's cut them off, and they think that's the whole industry. And that is not the whole industry. In fact, that's a very small part of the industry. And we try to show them the other part of the industry, the positive of it.
There's so much complexity to the people in those chairs. And I think that's something that gets lost at times too, is, this is a very consuming industry, a very consuming job, and something that, requires you out on the road a lot. But that doesn't mean that there isn't, a life outside of that industry. And I think that perspective does get lost a lot of times. With those people in that chair. So it's cool that you're getting a chance to magnify, those kind of people in this industry. We're
not going to help if we're not going to help our own kind, who are we going to help, right? Like, we're not going to help our own people who are, I'm actually one of those people who believe that truck drivers are essential service. Not just saying that.
No,
I believe that.
Absolutely. No. We have a motto here. We give all of anybody that buys a truck with Arrow, we give them a sticker, and it says, "You bought it, I brought it."
Yeah.
It's this country doesn't run without the guys and girls that are in those chairs. So and that one of the things, like, I think that's, we want people to have success, and this is just us specifically, Arrow, but it's everybody. Us in the trucking industry, Arrow can't have success if our truck drivers aren't having success. The people that, and that trust us to be, to be the company they work with to acquire their next truck. If they aren't successful, we aren't successful either. And so, we love trying to hear from, we love trying to provide some perspectives from a lot of different people out here, because, we want the people listening to this show, maybe they're down the road, we want them to be successful too, whether they're here with us or, in general, because the success of the truck industry specifically too, outside of Arrow employees, it's important to everyone. It's important to all of our success in and out of the trucking industry, for sure.
I've hauled a lot of toilet paper, never once got a thank you. I don't know why all of a sudden, in the pandemic, it's a big thing. But like you're saying, there's lots of owner operators who are very successful. But one of the things you hear all the time is that you can't make any money in this industry. But you go to a truck show and see $300,000 Peterbilts lined up, fender after fender after fender. Right. So someone's making some money. And I think you have to be smart about it.
Yeah.
A lot of people get into the trucking and they go, okay, I'm a good truck driver. They don't realize once you buy a truck, you are now a business owner. And that's a totally different mentality, totally different skill set. Not that you can't learn it. I've learned it. But a lot of times your first one is not your most successful business. This is not my first business. This is probably my 10th business I'm doing now. It's now starting to work. I go back to that first truck that I bought with my friend. I would have done things a lot differently. I didn't know at the time. Sure. I didn't even know what trucking was really at the time. And that's why I tell now new students, I go, don't be in a hurry to go buy that truck. Some of them want to be owner operators right out of the gate. I go, learn this industry. It's going to take you 2 to 5 years to learn what trucking is, just trucking. And so go drive, be on the open board, go everywhere they send you and learn what this industry is. And once you get that under your belt, then become an owner operator if that's what you want to do and go down the line that way. But if we do it too fast, we skip some of the important learning that makes you successful later on.
No, that's such a good point. And then there's timing's a lot, I think, for for an owner operator. It's making that sound decision at the right time for you. And you kind of talk about it. There's got to be some level of industry experience there, I think, before you go out on your own. And I think some of it too is it can be identifying your niche. There's so many different niches in this industry. I think some of it's just identifying what you want to be hauling to and what you like and what you enjoy and the benefits of, each individual aspect. I mean, I'm telling you, this there's a broad umbrella for trucking industry, but man, there's a lot of little miniature facets in there, and a lot of things that go into the decision making process for someone, trying to, whether they're continuing to be a company driver or trying to go out on their own. So
Yeah.
no, that's
podcasting, right? Like I started and I went full bore because I was following someone who was 10 years ahead of where I was in podcast space. And when it started being successful is when I reeled it back and I said, I'm just going to do once a week or once every couple of days or whatever I decide to do, and build it up slowly. And now we build it back up to that daily podcast. And the same thing happens with an owner operator, right? They see a successful owner operator who's driving this fancy truck and has the perfect road, lanes that they're doing. And they do this and they do that and they come back and they make it look very easy. And they go, I want to be like that. But what they don't know is that person probably took 20 years of learning the industry and getting their business going and getting the perfect contract to where it now looks easy, and you're not there yet. So when someone goes out and says, well, he's got a big truck, I'm going to go buy a big truck, and find out that now you're paying big money and that person wasn't, because that's not their first truck, it's their 10th truck, that makes a big difference. So people need to start look a couple years ahead, or look 3 to 5 years ahead. Don't look at somebody who's been trucking and an owner operator for 30 years and try to be like them, because there's a lot of things in that 30 years that they've learned or they've traded up or they've experienced, or the network or whatever it was that got them to be successful today. Just start where you are. People try to fast track this and it really goes against you at the end of the day. And I've learned that the hard way, not because I'm a guru or anything. I've learned that after 57 years of being me.
Right. Well, so, I think there's value in listening to what those guys have to say, but
sure,
not necessarily trying to be them right from jump street. The function of a truck is more important than the chrome features.
Yeah. Well, it'd be like someone coming to me and say, Bruce, how do I do a podcast? And I go, well, first of all, this studio, I've got 2 or 3 cameras set up. You got to have 4 monitors. You got to go buy the best mic. And you don't have to do that to start a podcast. That's what I've worked up to over time. You just need a kind of an idea of what you want to say is what you really need to start with, and maybe a little mic.
Yeah, the baseline fundamentals are what you need to get started, and then eventually, as you grow, as you develop, the opportunity presents itself for, more union. And that's sound advice for anything, but it's the same with the trucking industry: is get into the right truck, find your niche. I mean, again, finding your niche is the same thing like with the podcast space. You don't want to be too broad. You want to kind of single in on something that you're passionate about, you're excited about. And I mean, you very obviously found that, and you found it's a great outlet for your kind of voice too. But like you started somewhere. It doesn't mean you're right there. And it doesn't mean that a new podcaster or a new truck driver needs to start the exact same place you are right now. That's such a great point, Bruce.
Yeah. And there's a few shows up here in Canada that we've got a friend of mine who does a show. He was in insurance and safety. So his show's more towards the safety personnel. I've got another friend who's a photographer. So his show is geared more to that. We've got somebody who's more towards industry. I'm more towards the driver. Like my audience is the truck driver. That's who I'm speaking to. I do talk about safety and I do talk some industry stuff, but it's all based to help that driver understand where they sit right now in the seat.
So if you want one thing that your listeners to take away from your podcast, what is it?
I think probably the biggest thing is that no matter where you are in your career, or whether you're just in a school right now, or you're starting, or maybe you've been running for a few years, there's lots of opportunity. Like, don't be in a rush for it. Just take your time, learn, keep educating yourself. That's one of the things I harp on the most, is just keep educating yourself, especially as we go into a world with, I don't know how you guys feel in the truck market about autonomous trucks, but I don't know if that's going to help you or hurt you. But I mean, for drivers, right, a lot of drivers are getting a little worried and going, what am I going to be doing in 10, 20 years, right? And we're saying, don't worry about your job. It's still going to be there. But if all you decide to do is just stay in a job that just takes van trailers from A to B, those are the first ones to go. So I always tell people, specialize, get into flatbed, get into tanker, get into something else where they can't just take your truck away and now say that the job is done, because they're already doing that. Yeah. So, the people that are just running a van trailer with a part that only goes down one lane of the highway, those are the first that companies are going to be going. But if you're specialized, it's going to be a lot harder to get rid of you, which means, and even if they do get rid of you as far from a driver standpoint, they're going to need your knowledge to make sure it happens. So the way I figure out this whole autonomous trucks, I don't even know we want to go there. I told you I might ruin your show. I told you. So
no, go for it.
The way I see this, and I could be totally off base, but the way I see this working is all of those basic runs. There is a control center with a whole bunch of young people who are super good at gaming, and they each have control of a truck, and they're going to take the truck from A to B, and then at the terminals, a driver will get in and go do the deliveries. That's how I see it working. So you're going, okay, well, these smart people are there. I don't know anything about computers. No, but they also need the trucking knowledge to know what do I do in this situation when the weather turns like this, or what should we be doing? I think the older drivers, the experienced drivers, your knowledge is going to be your power. So if you keep educating yourself so you understand how technology works, you will be able to coach somebody actually operating the truck, even if it's not yourself. But if you just stay there and go, no, I don't want to learn anything, I'm just going to go up and down the road, there's going to be a time where they just say, sorry, we don't really need you. So educate yourself and look towards the future and use your expertise or use your specialty, whatever that might be for you.
No, that's great stuff. Bruce, I want to give you a chance to let us know what you're up to, where we can find more about the lead pedal and anything else you're up to. This is your chance to just kind of plug whatever you want.
Well, probably the best place to go is just go to the leadpedalpodcast.com. Everything is there. You can just go out from there. You can put my name in Google and trust me, you'll get 7 websites. You'll get hundreds of pages. So that's probably the easiest place to start for the audience here. And there's lots of information on owner operators. I talk to people about how to buy a truck, all that kind of stuff. So if people are interested in that, they can certainly do that, but there's something there for everybody.
That's great. Well, Bruce, thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with us. Really enjoyed it. And we'd love to have you on again sometime.
Do another 10 episodes right now and we'll be,
we're just going to do a series with Bruce.
I like that.
And I got to come up with a more punny name for that series and that title. We'll be workshopping it until the next time we talk to you, my friend.
I'm sure.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Kent. That's been a ball of fun.
All right. Well, that is another episode of the Successful Driver Podcast presented by Aero Truck Sales. Thank you again to Bruce for spending a little bit of time with us. We'll be back next week. Catch you later.